This is the Pressing the Limits podcast with your host, John Bruni.
Hey, everybody, this is John Bruni, and our guest today is Brett Jones. Now, Brett is StrongFirst Director of Education. He is a trainer with decades of experience and client results. He's an author, a presenter, and one seriously strong guy. I hope that you're ready to sit back. You need to buckle in for this one. Welcome to the show, Brett Jones.
John, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and the opportunity to be with your audience.
Well, I'm a big fan of your work, and just for people who don't know, can you tell us kind of your journey? Can you take us a little bit on the journey of strength and fitness? Somebody who's been in the game for decades. Can you take us on that journey real quick?
Sure. As they said in the movie Nobody, short story long, wrestling in junior high and high school. That was kind of the start. And of course, it was Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding and, education of a bodybuilder. And I was a decently strong kid, good at pull-ups and things like that. And had a great example from my dad who quit smoking and got fit. And so I'm seeing him get up and go to the gym. And then my brother starts wrestling. And then for my own self-preservation, I start wrestling and make that progression. And then I was the kid that was, I got injured a little bit in high school. I end up taping thumbs and helping the coach out. So I get interested in athletic training. So I go to school for sports medicine and athletic training. Fitness goes by the wayside. And then as I got out of my first job and started running a hospital fitness center, and entered the fitness industry, I really started upping, what I was doing there. And I'd worked out sporadically during college and stuff like that. But, that was kind of the impetus back then, was seeing what my dad was doing, getting into wrestling, and then, into being in the fitness industry. And I was every kind of trainer. I was the functional trainer. I was the body weight trainer. I was the, all this stuff. And then I found Pavel. And I had a quick rewind. I had the opportunity to work with Gray Cook before functional movement systems was a thing. And then was actually at the first functional movement systems workshop, and then ended up teaching with Gray from 2006 till pandemic times. And, but then found Pavel's stuff. And that was what really, shot me up into a lot of different areas. And, I ended up being watching one of the ninth or so red nail bender, James Smith. I was the witness, and Steve McGranahan. I don't know if you know Steve.
No, who he is? I don't know him personally, but yeah.
A fantastic guy, fantastic gentleman. But he was there and had me try a couple things, and he's like, "You should try this." So yeah, I ended up being a red nail bender myself and doing some grip feats. So strength was always one of those things that was just with me, even if it went into the background.
So just diverge off for a second. When you bent the red nail, did you reverse bend it, double overhand, or double underhand? I didn't get to see you do it. I know you did it. I just don't know how.
Well, this was back in 2004. I was the 11th guy in the world to do it. That's back when video was not the easiest thing to get out there and things like that. So it was double overhand. I started double under Steve McGranahan's tutelage, and the kinks became so small that when I was turning it over, I was basically doing it double overhand anyway. So I progressed into the double overhand style. And I was the 11th guy to do it. And back in 2004, 22 years.
Which is awesome. If people, sometimes if you want to take the deep dive, you'll understand about the double overhand, the reverse, and double underhand. The double overhand to me is one of the most impressive feats. My mentor, John Brookfield, I remember he did it, I think, at waist level. I'm like, dude, you're just crazy strong. But anybody that can bend the red nail, what an achievement. That is beyond. And like I said, that you did it double overhand. So impressive. So let's get into this a little bit. So you have this journey, and all of a sudden you get into Pavel's work. You were with FMS. You did all the Secrets series, right? Secrets of the shoulder, the hip, all those. And those are great resources. There's some fantastic stuff out there. But you discovered Pavel. Tell us about how you got into kettlebells, because kettlebells are a major part of your programming. We have iron cardio, which we can talk about that in a few moments. But share how you discovered kettlebells, because in the beginning, like when I first got into it, it was pretty fringe. Like it was real fringe. I was involved with Milo, not invent anything. Ended up is what the word I want to say, writing for them eventually. But that's kind of where I discovered this whole thing, through Pavel. So can you share with us how you discovered kettlebells on your strength journey?
Absolutely. So, somebody that had worked with me at this hospital fitness center that I was running comes back in and he says, "Hey, you got to check out this Pavel guy." And I'm like, okay. So I pull it up and I end up getting Power to the People was the first book that I got from Pavel. And so I started reading it and I'm like, mind blown. This isn't about bodybuilding. It's 2 exercises. It's focused on strength. And I'm like, I up is down, black is white, cats and dogs living in harmony. This is just, mind blowing stuff at the time. And so the marketing machine kicks in, and I start getting all the emails and newsletters. And that was back when you actually got physically mailed, stuff. And I started hearing about kettlebells. So I get the book, Russian Kettlebell Challenge. I looked at it and I said, it's really interesting, but I can do all of this with a dumbbell. And I threw it in a drawer. And like 2 or 3 months later, it's just scratching at the back of my head the whole time. So I pull it back out and I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hook up a dumbbell. I'm going to try one of these workouts. And when EMS revived me, I said, and that's for your listeners that don't know me, that's a joke. Okay. My sense of humor is a little dry and sarcastic. No EMS were involved, but the experience was enough to where I was like, I need to go get trained in this. I need a kettlebell. I need to get trained in this. So I got my first kettlebell in late 2001. And then I went and got certified at the second ever cert in February of 2002. And really, kettlebells have been a mainstay in my program since then. So 23 plus years. Then I was invited a year later to start teaching with Pavel. And so I've been teaching with him for 22 years. And just been mainstay.
I love it. And I want to talk about this a little bit because we've got a lot of barbell people here, and the barbell is a great tool. I'm now in my 50s, and so I still use the barbell, but not near what I do, because I found that my strongest, I was telling Jeff Newport, that my strongest I ever was when I was able to double press the beast, when I could do both of those. And I found that was the strongest I could be, and I got away from that. I started benching crazy, and then it's just diminishing returns. I was much stronger doing that than I ever was putting 500 pounds on the bar. And so now I am full on. I will still squat and I'll still do some deadlifting, but I am full on with the kettlebell right now. I mean, I actually did it over my lunch hour because you can fit it into anything, right? I was at home in between things going on today. I said, you can always get in some snatches. You can always get in some swings. You can always get in these ballistics and feel refreshed instead of smoked. So, and here it goes back things with shoulder injuries, everything that I've had, and I know you've had injuries. Because I keep coming back to it time and time again. I just told my wife today, I said, I probably will be on kettlebell cycles for the rest of my life because I enjoy them so much. Why are kettlebells so effective in building athleticism? We talked the WTH effect, cardiovascular conditioning without having to be on a treadmill. And then the biggest thing that people find, and it comes out of nowhere, the body recomposition. Because all of a sudden people say, I wasn't trying to do this, but this happened. Can you tell us what makes them so effective?
100%. A couple different areas. So the implement itself, which is this just kind of brutish utilitarian design, right? It's a cannonball with a handle on it. But that thick handle and offset center of mass really makes it a different tool than any dumbbell or barbell. Center of mass is going to line up with your hand. This is going to lay either 6 to 8 inches below your hand or be projected 6 to 8 inches beyond your hand. And so that idea of the weight being alive in your hand and having to compensate and not compensate, but deal with that offset center of mass. Initially when you're pressing, that offset center of mass is going to guide you into a better lockout position. As you press heavy enough, that becomes something that you're working through and challenges the overhead press and position, which has additional strengthening benefits. Within swings, cleans, snatches, that the way the bell is alive in your hand is just different than almost anything else that you're doing. The loaded overspeed eccentric position that we can get into. You're not going to hike a barbell between your legs more than once. And then you'll decide that was a really bad idea and you won't do it again. Even the dumbbell, because of its design and the way you have to work with it, it's not the same as what happens with that kettlebell in that loaded eccentric position. So I've been on the force plate doing a 2-arm swing with just a 24 kilo bell, producing 3 to 3.5 times my body weight eccentric load at the bottom of that swing. A 53-pound weight giving me 3 to 3.5 times my body weight eccentric load. That is a fantastic return on investment. I think Sif and Vershkansky would call it more of a power metric exercise, not plyometric, but you're definitely getting this intense absorb and redirect with that loaded overspeed eccentric. So those are some of the basic things there. And then because you're doing this power metric sort of exercise, and you can do it in these packages of low to moderate reps with appropriate rest, now we start getting into all those other benefits that you were talking about. We're doing a form of metabolic conditioning, and nowadays we would call it more anti-glycolytic training within the StrongFirst universe. Those have tremendous benefits of themselves. Most people pursue more high-intensity routines, almost equaling or inverting work-to-rest ratios, and it's awesome for 4 to 6 weeks. And then you fall off the top of the mountain, and usually things don't go so well, and then you have to come back, another high-intensity routine, fall off the top of the mountain again. So, and then the what the heck effect that you were alluding to, like, I'm doing swings and get-ups, but my pull-ups I just set a PR on my pull-ups. How did that happen? There's a lot in how we teach how to use the body, our high-tension techniques, and these ballistic exercises. There's a lot of benefit in there.
Well, this is just awesome, and I want to get off on a little sidetrack if we can, if you are comfortable sharing this. Tell me about your views on HIIT versus axe versus even grease the groove, which we'll get in a little bit, because when I was first started getting into kettlebells and I got hardcore, like I was a maniac, and this is before I really got into the barbell again. I remember I was trying to do the Secret Service snatch test every day, 3 or 4 days a week, and that works when you're, 40s and your 50s. That doesn't. I mean, that's when my shoulder got all jacked up from benching. And I found that I don't think I need to do that all the time. I was always trying to smoke myself, and I felt like I ended up getting diminishing returns. Now, this time, I'm a lot smarter with some of that stuff. I will have days when I'll do some HIIT work. But tell us the difference for people that don't know. Can you talk about HIIT versus axe versus grease the groove? Sure. I don't want you to give away all the stuff that's in your manuals. You know what I'm trying to say? I want you to whet people's appetite. I want them to buy the courses. But if we can talk about those 3 different avenues and why sometimes there's diminishing returns and explosiveness. I found that my snatch power is much better when I keep the numbers lower, and that if I need to go, set some kind of record, I'm prepared to do that. I just don't have to do it every day. I don't have to break my record every day. So kind of talk about those 3 different things: strength practice versus working out and smoking yourself. Can you share on that, kind of riff on that a little bit?
100%. And the first thing I'm going to say is going to sound like it's not related, but stick with me. Investing. If I put $1 in, I'd love to get 2 back, right? Well, what if we treated our training the same way? So first up in that is understand the cost of what you're doing. When we're spending money or investing money, we begin to very quickly understand that if I'm putting $10 into this investment, I don't want to get 5 back. I want to get 15 or 20 back. Like I want that to work for me in the smarter, not harder sort of category. So within training, we have to understand the metabolic, the neurological, and the mechanical stress that we're being placed under with anything that we choose to do. And with most metabolic conditioning protocols, in particular for the ACTS versus HIIT sort of comparison, there's been 2 schools of thought. With high intensity training and lactate threshold training, you're basically trying to get better at tolerating that accumulation of stress and metabolic waste within the body. It's not the lactate. The acid part is the problem. Like people love to say, well, lactic acid is good. The lactate is. But that has a cost. There is too much accumulation. When we take the anti-glycolytic approach, it's not that we're not accumulating some lactic acid, but we're only accumulating enough, and then we have a chance to clear it. So do you want to just work on your tolerance, your ability to take the burn, or do you want to change your capacity to actually metabolize, remove, and process those waste products? That's the big difference. And people miss this because even in a book like Kettlebell Acts, there's the double espresso shot that you're supposed to be taking every 2 weeks. We want you having that little bit of glycolytic hit. It clears out some mitochondria that aren't doing their job. It is a validation or test of all the other training that you're doing. And it really helps. That little bump helps move things forward. So that sort of mindset really shifted when I went to the first Strong Endurance workshop, and I'm like, understanding the cost of my training. Well, there's a concept. Like you tend to think, and this gets into there's a whole other rant about recovery strategies and things of that nature. Because I was asked years ago, like, what's your favorite recovery strategy? I'm like, proper programming.
That's fantastic.
If you've programmed yourself appropriately, you should be recovering from your training. And the answer nobody wants is there are 2 answers if you can't recover from your training. Number 1 is lifestyle factors. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, and stress are not dialed in. You're trying to fix that problem with more training. Ain't going to work. Or you're just doing too much. And that's the pill nobody wants to swallow. I can recover from this. People get their, egos get involved and things like that. So that's the HIIT versus ACTS sort of idea. Understand the cost of your training, capacity versus tolerance. And there's an old-time strongman, I think it was Earl Lederman, who said at the finish of a workout, and I'm paraphrasing here, you should feel ready to battle for the kingdom, not like the war was lost. So if you're investing appropriately, investing doesn't hurt, right? If you're trying to figure out how to pay for groceries because you've invested too much in X, you're making the wrong investment. You still have to eat, right? So if your training is destroying you and it takes you 2 to 3 days to recover from your training, that's too much. On the strength training end of things, in traditional strategies, we inversely couple intensity and volume. If I'm doing something that's high intensity, it's low volume. And intensity being defined as a % of your 1RM or your repetition max. But if I'm doing high volume, it's low intensity. If it's high intensity, it's low volume. So that teeter-totter is how we typically do that. You can break that teeter-totter, and you can have any combination thereof. And when you look at the most successful training programs over time, the average relative intensity will ballpark between 70 to 80% of a 1RM. What can you go do with a 70% 1RM? A lot.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And especially if you say that 80% 1RM, which is typically a 5 to 8 sort of RM, depending on the individual. Now do sets of 3 How many sets of 3 can you get out of that? You're going to be able to change your volume, change your quality. Safety goes up. At StrongFirst, we don't look at safety as something we hope to achieve. We look at safety as part of proper performance, part of proper programming. And certainly people blow past stop signs. And when you look at kettlebell axe or simple and sinister, you're going to see the StrongFirst stop signs represented in there. And if everybody just embraced those StrongFirst stop signs and they trained with a third, maybe up to a half of their repetition max, or 70, 80% of a 1RM, things would be a lot better for folks.
I love that. And that's just pure wisdom. One of the things I even learned this summer, I didn't learn, but is that I'm trying to have these come to Jesus moments of being addicted to being smoked. Some of the things I was doing this summer, I didn't feel like, man, I'm just not, I'm not tired enough afterwards. And so I started to do is on the weekends, I thought, well, you know what I need to add here? I'm already doing swings and some stuff. I need to add the assault bike. I was on the Rogue Echo bike doing all kinds of sprints, and I just never recovered. I started to get to the point where I just never felt good. And I've realized that depending on where you are, depending on how much mileage you have on your body too, I've got mileage from doing a lot of stupid things. Less is more, and better is better, as far as better reps, better technique. And that's one of the things, I think that you've just kind of whet the appetite of people we're talking about axe and anti-glock, all kinds of great stuff, which kind of leads me into the whole StrongFirst concept. What is StrongFirst? And that's where people can learn about all these rep schemes, all these different ideas. When you get into StrongFirst, there are things that it's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant. Kind of tell us about what StrongFirst is, and then if you could share kind of the mission and the vision of StrongFirst.
Absolutely. So StrongFirst, basically the school of strength, from a quote from Professor Medvedev, that strength is the foundational human capacity, right? I'm paraphrasing there, putting it into my own language, but strength is a primary physical quality and thing that should be emphasized. All other qualities come off of that. Want to be powerful? Better be strong.
Absolutely.
All of those things start to connect. So we teach little quippy little, we're experts at making the weak strong and the strong stronger.
I love that.
That is where we specialize. And the kettlebell, barbell, and body weight training that we do, and body weight training is interesting in that mostly that's going to be higher rep calisthenic work. We treat body weight work as a strength practice the same way we would with the barbell. And so it's a really different approach. Our mission is to pursue, promote, and practice strength because strength is the primary quality. We believe that strength has a greater purpose, that being strong is not an isolated physical pursuit, that pursuit of strength. And strength means many things to many different people. It doesn't have to mean a 500-pound squat or bench or pressing kettlebell X. It can be many different things. But that pursuit of strength and being a stronger person, it is a worthwhile pursuit because it has a greater purpose. I'm a 54-year-old cancer survivor, and in the course of my treatment and everything that I went through, had I not had the base of strength that I had and the tissue to sacrifice, quite honestly, I wouldn't have come through treatment as well as I did. And so, you get into some situations like that and you really embrace the idea that, oh yeah, I got strong for a reason. I didn't know what it was when I was building that strength, but boy, it's sure coming in handy now. So that's from an overarching standpoint, that's the goal. And, when you look at, a lot of people in our world could be stronger.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love hearing from somebody like you. That's the real deal. Being a survivor, strength is so important in all areas. You talk about overcoming cancer, and everybody at some point at different levels has some kind of trauma. They're going to go through some kind of adversity. And I think that strength training is just one of the things that does get you through because it teaches you how to be uncomfortable. It teaches you so much. There's so many lessons that are gained by it. And that's what I love, the whole StrongFirst, that everything is based off strength. Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. These are all things that we need to have strength in. And so with that idea and that mission and vision, if you were to give just some of, and again, people are going to need deeper instruction on this. I always think this is one of the most important things is that people think they can learn by just watching a YouTube clip here or there. Technique, especially with the kettlebell, is everything. I have found sometimes because, I write kettlebell books, but I buy everybody's kettlebell books because sometimes there's just that one little nugget that, I didn't know that. You always have to be learning. There's always, and my view is there's always somebody better than me doing it out there. So I try and learn from as many different people as I can. But there's always these little nuggets, these little things that can make such a big difference. I think it's cheesy, and I don't know who said it, but small tweaks will take you to giant peaks. It's that type of thing. You're always, especially now, like I said, I'm dialed in for the rest of my life into kettlebells. It's technique becoming better and better and better and better. How can I do this rep better today than I did yesterday? Better form. So let's talk about that. What would be, out of all those things, some of the best bang for your buck drills? If you were to say you need to get started, and maybe even what's the best program to get started with for people, but the best bang for your buck drills for people that are just starting out, and maybe the best programs to jump on.
100%. Kettlebell deadlift into kettlebell swing and the kettlebell getup. And I know that the getup has for some reason become like a hot button issue for some people that are out there. They don't like it. Usually they don't like it because it makes them uncomfortable. And we will do things that are painful, but we will avoid things that are uncomfortable. It kind of blows my mind. But if you progress yourself appropriately and learn the getup, I really think it sets a foundation for everything else that we want to do. As in an aging population, what's the number one fear people have? Falling. What's fear number two? Not being able to get back up. The getup is training for life, right? It is being able to efficiently move yourself and build really supporting strength that carries over into everything else. So really, kettlebell simple and sinister from Pavel is a tremendous place to start. The goblet squat, the bridge, the halo, things you're going to do as part of the warm-up, learning the get-up, learning how to kettlebell deadlift appropriately into the swing, that's a great foundation. When you come up a level from that, the clean, the press, the squat within the kettlebell world, tremendous benefit to be had. That's the guts of the Iron Cardio program as far as clean press and squat. And I know you had Jeff on, and he's a big clean and press guy. He's had a lot of programs and a lot of success with that because we don't treat them as isolated shoulder lifts. Those are full body lifts that have tremendous benefit to them. Add in the kettlebell snatch if you'd like to add in a little bit more power and a move that really is a nice athletic display. And I think it's more accessible to people than they realize. Now, for me, the base that sits underneath all of that is your movement quality. I'm an FMS guy. I'm a big believer in you have these fundamental and foundational movement qualities and capacities that need to be respected. Sometimes you lack those because of weakness. Sometimes you lack those because of just not, having stretched or moved in that way in a while. Sometimes it's structure. You need to know how to be able to adapt your technique to fit you, the individual. And you were talking about the barbell versus the kettlebell. Once you lock into a barbell and you're either stuck between the floor with your feet and the barbell, or you're stuck between your hands and the bench, or in a military press between your feet and your hands, your wiggle room goes way down. Give me a kettlebell. Now we can start finding paths and ways that work with your body in a very different way than what's happening with the barbell. And so, all of these things come together in this progression from the simple and sinister sort of program into an iron cardio or a clean and press sort of program from Jeff. And, it's great foundation.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and we're going to get back to our guest in just a moment. But I want to share a quick word from our sponsor. The Pressing the Limits podcast is brought to you by ZionMissionaryChurch.net, where you can listen and watch messages, share prayer requests, or even find out how to plan a visit. And those are great things. And I tell people now, I don't even bench anymore. As of about 3 months ago, I just press. Now, I'll just still do push-ups. I do the Neuro Grip push-ups and all that great stuff. But you also have to find what value is this adding to my life. And that's one of the things I like about kettlebells. It adds value to you. And, for my shows, basically I still have to squat and deadlift because we're picking up cars, that kind of stuff. But if you don't need to do it, why are you doing it? That's why I'm trying to tell people is I've become much more minimalist than I used to be. I used to be, well, we got to work this and we got to work that and we got to work this angle. And, I've got 400 different snatch techniques, not 400, but a lot of different types of snatches, and they all have their place, but it depends on what your place in life. I feel like people have to have some kind of goal or understand the why. Why are you training in the first place? And what is the best path? If the goal, everything comes off of strength, what is the best way to get stronger and to keep that strength, not to be crippled? I'm 54 too. So, we don't want to be crippled. We want to be able to be athletic. And speaking of that, you kind of touched on the mobility. Where's a good place for people to start removing mobility restrictions? Something like the get up. The get up for a lot of people, even if it's a half get up, even if it's a quarter get, can you kind of talk about what's the best place to start? Because some people look at the get up and they say, I could never do that. So they don't even try. So what's some of the things that people can do that have mobility restrictions? How do we dial back and how do we regress maybe in some of these movements?
Definitely. So I'm going to pull back to a 30,000 foot view and say, as an FMS guy, I think there should be some sort of movement screening or some sort of quantification of how you currently move, right? Do you lack ankle, hip, and T-spine mobility? Do you have the ability to respond to an extension stress? Can you access these just minimums? We're not talking about movement perfection. We're talking about just don't fall below this line, right? With ankle mobility, I make very few declarative statements because nobody puts baby in a corner. Crazy for Swayze, baby. But if you have less than 35 degrees of active ankle dorsiflexion or you have a greater than 5 degree asymmetry between your ankles, that is a musculoskeletal health risk factor. So guess what? We have an easy way that we can check your ankle mobility within the FMS. And we can say, you definitely need to improve your ankle mobility, which is different than saying, I don't know, I don't think I need to improve my ankle mobility. Okay, prove it. My T-spine's fine. Cool, prove it. Let's make sure that you can do those things. So with whether you find an FMS professional, I do have a product out there called Mind the Gap, which is all about mobility, stability, and strength gaps within your program. Because to your point, when you follow a minimalist program, which I'm a huge fan of, there are certain little gaps that start to show up. Now, it's going to be different for each individual because don't know where you're starting from or where you're putting more emphasis. But so right off the bat, do you need to improve your ankle mobility? There's stretches for that. Do you need to change your hip mobility? There's ways to address that. Is your T-spine tight? We need to make sure those things are moving. And then we tie it together in something like the get-up. And I think the thing that I would want to encourage people with the get-up is it's one of those rare things where the pieces are greater than the whole. If you're just, and I say just, and I'm doing it for those of you listening and not watching, I'm an air quotes guy. So you can see me doing air quotes around just right now. You're just getting to the elbow, the most important part of the get-up. It really ties everything together. Brett Contreras did some early EMG stuff, finding that the get-up was 100% MVC or better in like all of the abdominal muscles and does a really good job with training the midsection. And so people look at the whole 7 steps, 6 or 7 steps on the way up, and then you got to come back down. And well, let's just get good at getting to the elbow first, and then get from the elbow to the hand, and build it just a step at a time. Practice body weight get-ups, but from a loaded situation, just practice it one step at a time. Once you're good at getting to the elbow to the hand, now we start sweeping the leg, Cobra Kai. And yeah,
Love
Johnny.
it. Yeah,
Get him
Johnny.
a
I'm a
body
Johnny
bag.
fan, so
He was right. It was an illegal kick.
that's right.
So that building that one step at a time and realizing that this is how you're going to get up and down off the ground for the rest of your life. And that's, some of the most satisfying things for me as a trainer when I'm working with people is I enjoy the athletic accomplishments. Granted, it's great to prepare somebody for an SFG1, snatch test, performance in whatever sport activity. But when somebody comes back to me and says, I could get down on the ground and play with my grandkids and get back up, I'm like, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Like that is, I just did sorry, I didn't turn off my things there. So the people watching this will have a blast.
That's awesome,
But,
though. We have fireworks.
That sort of mindset of, training for life, but building strength that really transfers and makes your life better.
I love that. Now, I want to shift gears for just a second because we already talked about the red nail. Dude, if you do the red nail, I mean, people that don't know, you need to look this up. It is world-class strength. What's the number even right now of people that have bent the red nail?
Yeah, I'd have to look, but, in the 23 years 21 years since I did it, it's grown quite a bit. I don't know the exact number, but it's certainly grown, but it's still not in the thousands.
Yeah, it's crazy limited amount of people in the world that can do this. You have incredible grip strength, and I want to ask you how important you think grip is. We know that and here's an interesting thing. So I want to have your take on this. I've always read the studies that grip is an indicator of longevity and all of these different things. And I'm wondering, just your opinion, is that because people who have a good grip actually do gripping movements through life, whether it's hanging, whether it's kettlebells, lifting, picking up kids, or is it there's something correlated to the grip and the brain? Because to me, we know that there's all these neurons attached to the hand. So let's talk about how important grip strength is. What are some of the best ways to train it? Is it grease the groove? Do you feel everyone needs to train pinch, thick, gripper, extensors? Just kind of give us a nutshell in that. And for people that have never trained their grip, this will be kind of a good little primer and kind of whet your appetite for more.
Absolutely. So first, to your point about the research, grip strength again and again is coming out as a biomarker. And it can be a biomarker for performance, because one of the studies I was looking at recently, I wrote one of the StrongFirst newsletters on the grip strength correlated, especially dominant hand grip strength correlated with like 8 out of 9 aspects of vertical leap performance on a force plate.
Wow.
Those that had the better grip strength had the better vertical leap performance. And that's actually been replicated in some different populations. So strength, whole body strength being correlated to grip strength. Aging, to your point with longevity, living independently, all-cause mortality, grip strength is correlated with all of those things. And to your other point, yeah, it's not because grandpa's been sitting around squeezing a gripper for his whole life. It's because, and Grandma Betty was probably, doing things out, working in whatever situation she was working in that required her to build a stronger grip, or to the point of the athletes who have the stronger grip strength and the better vertical leap performance. Those are usually people who are deadlifting, cleaning, swinging bells, and doing things that require grip strength and that build it sort of by proxy, not by maybe direct grip training. And so those activities, those lifestyles, those exercises like deadlifts, swings, snatches, things of that nature, that build grip strength as part of performing the exercise. That's why you see that all-cause mortality and that independent aging and performance connection as far as grip strength is concerned. And then, we pull back and look at the homunculus, which is the picture of how your body maps your brain maps your body. Big hands, big face, big lips, big feet. And that's where sensory motor, the motor map is a little bit different, but not that dissimilar, in that hands get a big piece of real estate within motor programming as well. And if you just peel that back to our most fundamental levels, anybody that's tried to get the baby just found on the floor out of its hand, you know that grip strength is it's pretty natural for us to just go around and grab hold of something. Where's it go next? In the mouth, which is usually why the parent is trying to get it out of their hand, because it doesn't need to go there. Fundamentally and neurologically, hands are super important. And the fact that we ulnar deviate, which is unique, and that's why we can write, why we can wield weapons and do so many of the things that we do. So there's an argument to be made for a lot of our gray matter coming about, because once we could do this and we could start creating more with our hands, the gray matter had to come along for the ride, because now we could do more. And so, hands and grip strength is, it's central. Stronger hands, stronger midsection, stronger body.
So how would you, do you think people, okay, let's say Joe Blow is doing kettlebells. Do they need to train independently with their grip as far as like doing grippers or some thick-handled work? Or, of course, I think everybody has to do extensors, but that's just me, because it's just balance. What would be the minimum you think people should do if they should add that as a layer onto their training? And if they want to take that training to the next level, what would you suggest? People that do want to increase the grip, what would you suggest?
So for setting the baseline, you can get some really cheap hand dynamometers now. And you can see if you're even to the grip strength norms for your age. And obviously, I would push everybody towards the higher end of those ranges for your age group. So you can set a baseline for that, just like you do for your movement, just like you do for your blood pressure. Everything else, if we're going to treat it as a biomarker, let's set a foundation for it. Let's be able to track it. And so you can look at it from that fundamental standpoint of, I'm going to make sure that I'm above the minimums for my age group and check that box. Training wise, we want to be sure we're taking on activities that require us to build a good grip. So swinging kettlebells, snatching kettlebells, cleaning kettlebells, which have a thick handle and give us some of that thick handle grip benefit right off the bat. Deadlifting and activities where we're really having to hold on to the bar. And don't be afraid to let your grip be the limiting factor. Because as soon as we run into a grip issue, we start looking for ways around it.
Yep.
Opposable thumbs and rationalization, the only two things that separate us from the lower animals. So as soon as we realize our grip's the weak point, we're going to start grabbing straps. We're going to start going to exercises that don't require us to activate the grip as much. Let that be something that drives you to increase your grip strength. Don't avoid it. So if you're checking all of those boxes and you're above the minimums and you decide, I want to see where I can take my grip strength. To what you were alluding to, grip strength is a multi-dimensional thing. We could be talking about pinch, we could be talking about wide grip, we could be talking about crush, we could be talking about supporting, and then as you add the wrist in, now we start getting into 5 other areas of building strength in that region. So what do you want to be good at? What do you want to display? In addition to the red nail, I was closing grippers, and I did close the number 3, never officially, because that was right before they put the credit card in and made you open a new one out of the pack. And I was like, well, that's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But plate pinching and different aspects. Simplest thing, if you're checking all of those boxes from a training standpoint, I would add pull-ups and hanging and maybe even towel pull-ups and things like that to the basic grip training that can be part of your strength training. Grippers are a great place to start. They set a great foundation for crushing strength. Crushing strength tends to transfer, building the strength of the thumb via some pinch grip training, whether that ends up being hub lifting or plate pinching. That was two of the things that I was happy with when I was focusing on my grip was 5-10s in one hand, and the hub lift, being able to pick up the 45-pound plates and actually one in each hand. And so a lot of different things that you can get into as far as your grip is concerned. And as I like to say, I used to have strong hands. I'm okay, but I'm nowhere near where I was.
Oh, you're a beast, dude. You are a beast. And I do want to ask you this. I'm just curious. Okay, so I have pretty short fingers. So I have what I call Flintstone hands. So I'm curious about the credit card set for you. So is that difficult? Do you have long fingers, or are they just, do you have like an average size hand?
Pretty average.
Okay.
Not big hands, but pretty average. And the credit card set was just different from what I was used to.
Yep.
And especially for like a new number 3 out of the box, that's a big lift.
Yep.
So the people that have done it since that's been in place, congrats. That's a very high level of crush grip strength.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. If people want to know more about that, the Iron Mind, we're talking about a niche community, but it is awesome. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but a couple of important questions, because we hear athletes all the time, and by the way, I say everybody's an athlete. Everyone is an athlete in some area of your life. What do you consider, with all the things that you've done, what do you consider your most important accomplishment?
Trying to be a good person, trying to use my strength and share my knowledge, be a good husband, be a good stepdad, be a good friend, be a good person. Everything that I'm doing training wise allows me to do that, which is what's most important in life, and really be kind. One of the only memes on the internet that means anything. Everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
So be kind. And we've lost that. So the ability to step back, be kind, be a good person, that's the things that I hope people remember about me, and that I would be proud of going forward.
I love that, because one of the things we want people to understand is that the reason why strength is so important is because we're supposed to share it. You cannot give what you do not have. And we say that time and time again. We don't want to be strong to hoard our strength or to be, the super machismo. It's so that you can be strong for somebody else. And I love that you shared that. All right, last question, because we've really kept you. What is one thing our listeners could do today to improve their lives? If there was just one thing you'd say, because I talk about this all the time. We have all these self-help programs and all kinds of stuff out there, and we give people a list of things to do, and they just kind of get overwhelmed. It's like a kid in college the first day with syllabus shock. If you were to give somebody some advice, you say, here's one thing you could do today that would improve your life, what would it be?
I got to go in a couple different areas.
Sure.
Hydration. I know that sounds like such a goofy thing to say, but most everybody is chronically dehydrated, and just changing your hydration will help your health. It will help how you're feeling. It will give you a window into many other things. So I'm physically or nutritionally, I'd say hydration. Number 2 is take a news break. Get away from I don't care what your news source is. Get away from it. Turn it off, get away from it, reconnect with the people that are in your life and closest to you. Reach out to people that you have not heard from. Put yourself out there, reconnect with people, One of the greatest things that's happened via the pandemic is things like this. We can connect from different coasts. We can share information and put this information out there, but it pales in comparison to be able to connect to the people that are with you. And when we look at the mental health struggles that people are having and the struggles that are happening, not connecting with people and being overwhelmed by news and stress and this constant onslaught of information, don't be afraid to shut that off and reconnect with people around you.
Wow. I love that. I love that. So last question is this, and I want you to kind of really let people know all the options. Where can people find more about you, more about StrongFirst, maybe a gym or a trainer near them too, if they want to find out? And is there anything else that you would like to share today?
Certainly. StrongFirst.com, all things StrongFirst, right? You're going to be able to find a gym, find an instructor, look at the articles. We have a robust article section where you can look up a bunch of different things. I have 60 plus some odd articles on there. My Iron Cardio book, theironcardio.com or appliedstrength.com. Mind the Gap, different things like that. Brett Jones SFG on Instagram, which is about the only social media that I do. And so those kind of cover the options of where to find me and StrongFirst and, functional movement systems, find a functional movement systems trainer, get screened, set that foundational baseline for how you're moving and where you actually need to put the bullseye for changing that. I think that, love the way the conversation went. Certainly know of your accomplishments and, the neurogrips and the ability to, nail bending to me was just being able to focus my strength towards a target, right? It's the same sort of concept, just applied to a different, thing. Mine end up bent and useless, but, that's I think a lot of synergy in everything that's going on there, and I think that strength has a greater purpose.
I love it. Well, I want to thank so much Brett Jones for being our guest today and for really literally investing in all of our listeners. We're so thankful that you were willing to be on the show today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and hope everybody's doing well.
Again, I want to thank our sponsor, ZionMissionaryChurch.net. Our podcast producer today is Drew Kiespert, video director, Jolyn Thomas, head of talent relations, Mr. Fairfax Hackley. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to the Pressing the Limits podcast. Follow us on Instagram for the latest episodes. For more ways to watch and listen to that podcast, check out the Pressing the Limits podcast website.